Lads, we are back. This deck profile is brought to you by me. So this deck profile is actually for Josh from Yin Yang Zing. You've noticed that he hasn't been on the channel a lot lately, and that's okay. He's busy grinding out for Pokemon Worlds. That's what he's trying to do. That's where his goals heads at, so that's fine. But this deck profile is for you, bud, because I know how much you love this deck. I've streamlined it. I'm really a big fan of how well it does. It doesn't even need hand traps. It's pretty wild. But this is the Fluffal deck profile. So I hope you guys enjoy. And we're going to jump right into the deck profile. Alright, so starting off with the Fluffal lineup. 3 copies of Fluffal Dog. It is your Rhoda, and it's a normal summon or special summon Rhoda. So it's really helpful. You want to see this card as often as possible because it's so incredibly powerful. 3 copies of Fluffal Bear. This card's incredibly important for getting your toy vendors out of your deck. It allows you to search. This card's insane in the deck. 2 copies of Fluffal Wings. Wings is your draw engine. Incredibly powerful little bugger. And it's incredibly important to one of the main combos of the deck. 2 copies of Penguin. Penguin is more draw power because the deck doesn't have nearly enough. Penguin allows you to draw 2 and discard 1 when it's fusioned. 1 copy of Sheep. Sheep allows you to bounce 1. Let's do special summon it if you control a Fluffal monster. Then you can bounce a Fluffal monster to special summon an Edge Imp. Which essentially what's that doing is if you have Dog on field and you special Sheep, you can bounce the dog so you have a play for the next turn if you go first or whatever, to bounce it back to your hand and then summon another Edge Imp and then be able to fusion summon, which is incredibly strong, especially if you use Chain, which lets you search a Fright for a card. 1 copy of Fluffal Cat lets you re-add Polymerization, incredibly important. And that's it for the Fluffals. It's not a lot, I know, but the deck is actually pretty consistent. Next up are the Edge Imps. So 3 copies of Edge Imp Chain. It is your searcher for the Fright Fur cards, which is incredibly powerful in this deck. And 1 copy of Sabers, because it's so searchable. You can change the ratios to 2 and 2, but I really like this ratio of 3 and 1. 4 Edge Imps is enough because they're all super searchable now with their introduction of Fright Fur Patchwork. So that's it for all of the Fluffal cards. Now on to the supplementary engine that make this deck absolutely insane. 3 copies of Lone Fire Blossom, which leads you into your 3 copies of Predaplant Orifice Scorpio, which gets you into your Predaplant Darling Todia Cobra. This is to get your Brilliant Fusion, which is why we run a Garnet. This is your... I know you only run 1 copy of Brilliant Fusion, but the rest of the deck is discard. Like, you can discard anything, really, and it doesn't really matter monster-wise what you discard because it's all fusion summonable in the graveyard, too. So, making sure that you get your additional normal summon is incredibly powerful. It just lets you extend your plays really far. And you run more than 40 cards. I think this is a 45-card deck, so it's perfectly fine. It really does blend well in that respect. Finally, for your monsters, 2 copies of Dino Wrestle or Pankratops. This deck is built to go second, so you want to be able to pop your opponent's back row and just deal with problematic cards, and it allows you to work through some forms of interruption. 3 copies of Fright for Patchwork. Patchwork is your searcher for an Edge Imp card, an Edge Imp monster, and a Polymerization. Searches both. So this 1 card is a +1 on its own, which is incredibly strong, but it is a hard once per turn. That's the only problem with this card, but it's so good you have to run it. There is an argument said for running 2. You can if you want. If you want to cut this down a little bit, you can cut 1 of these and it won't matter negatively too much. I like 3 copies of Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor is not a once per turn, so every time it's destroyed, you get to search a Fluffal card. You also get to discard a card and draw a card, and show it, and if it's a Fluffal monster, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. It does not have to be that monster, which is incredibly powerful. 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, just so you can send Toy Vendor to the graveyard. Incredibly important. It's the combo. Next up are the fusion spells, so 3 copies of Polymerization. I just love this artwork, so I had to have it in here, but that's why it's there. Polymerization is your fusion spell, 2 copies of Fright for Fusion. Lets you fusion summon from the graveyard for a Fright for monster. 1 copy of Instant Fusion, it just lets you get sheep. It's a really nice extender, but it's not necessary. You could run more of this if you wanted to cut a Fright for Patchwork for 1, you can. 1 copy of Brilliant Fusion. The reason we run so many fusion cards is because we run Fright for Factory, which allows us to banish 1 to fusion summon again. This card doesn't come up a lot, but it's so powerful that I like running it. If I only draw into, let's say, 2, you tend to fusion summon about 3 or 4 times in this deck. It's pretty crazy. And then 2 copies of Called by the Grave and 1 copy of Monster Reborn. That's it for the main deck. Like I said, I think it's like 40. It's a couple cards over 40. I don't know the exact number, but it's pretty consistent. It's pretty wild. Next up, for your extra deck, 1 copy of Fright for Sheep. This is your instant fusion target. You almost never fusion summon this thing the correct way. 2 copies of Kraken. Kraken is insane. It's Kraken. I won't make that joke again, probably. I have no reason to make it again. It is not a hard once per turn to pop cards. So this card you'll pop with its effect. You'll pop a card, and then you'll fusion summon into Sabretooth, and then bring it back, and then go off on your plays. It allows you to attack again. So it's pretty insane how powerful that card is. Fright for Tiger is a 2 of. This card is so powerful. If you fusion summon it with, let's say, 5 cards, you can wipe out 5 cards in your opponent's side of the field. This card's insane. You want to be able to fusion summon a few times per turn, and that's why it's so important to run Tiger. Next up, 2 Sabretooth. It revives another Fright for monster from your graveyard. So if you have, let's say, Tiger on field and Kraken on field, and you fusion summon into this, you pull that Kraken right back out after it's popped a card, and you just kind of start going off again on your plays. 1 Fright for Wolf. I never really use it, but when you do use it, it is an OTK machine because this one is the one that's able to attack any number of times up to the number of materials used. So this card can get really big and just attack a whole lot, which is insane. So I don't really I've never used it in a duel personally, but I've seen it used, and I know when it's like I know the situations are called for to use it to be able to wipe out your opponent in one fell swoop, but it's never come up for me. But it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And then the last Fright for monster is 1 Fright for Daredevil. It's just a big body. I've gone into him a few times just to steal game from somebody that had a big monster that I needed to out. 1 copy of Gem Knight Seraph Knight. Seraph Knight is your additional normal summon card. Wrong way. It's really powerful, Seraph Knight is. And, I mean, if you open Lone Fire Blossom, essentially what you're doing, all you need is Lone Fire Blossom and 1 other card. And what you're going to do is you're going to end on a board with 3 monsters. And typically the ability to plus, because those other 3 cards don't matter. At that point, you're probably going to go plus a couple. So, this card's insane. If the situation comes up, which doesn't often, but if it does, Leviar the Sea Dragon is super powerful. Lets you special summon something that's banished. So if it's possible to go into it at the end of the combo, I've never gotten a chance to go into it. This is this placeholder. You can fill it in with anything. It doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it doesn't. 1 Land Furnicus. This card's occasionally gone into, as well as Proxy Dragon. These 2 are occasionally gone into, but the 2 you typically will go into for Link monsters are Traffic Ghost and Decode Talker. Traffic Ghost is good because it gives you multiple zones to fusion summon in. Decode Talker is really good because it gets really big and helps you OTK the ever-living out of your opponent. Suggestions for Leviar the Sea Dragon before we wrap up this video. Instead of running Leviar, if you have Saryuja, you can run a Saryuja. It's insane to go into that early. So that's a good option. You can substitute this out for any big link monster you want. I don't personally have a Saryuja anymore, but Leviar the Sea Dragon is insane and incredibly powerful in the deck. I've only used it maybe twice, maybe. But the card's super fun to use in this deck. But that's going to be it for my Fluffal deck profile. I hope you guys enjoy. And Josh, this one's for you, buddy. Hoping to see you soon. And hoping we can get you back into this lovely game with your Fluffals. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below if you see anything that we can improve on. And subscribe. Share this video with a friend. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.